In 1071, the Eastern Roman Empire suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of the Seljuk Turks near Manzikert. In the following 9 years, the Turkic forces would conquer all of Anatolia, a province that had been consistently under Roman control for over 1100 years. The Byzantine elite would be unable to adequately face the Eastern threat, being preoccupied with a prolonged political crisis, with each Roman emperor having to deal with multiple revolts and usurpers simultaneously. It is within this volatile environment that one young Byzantine nobleman would rise through the ranks of the Roman military and eventually become emperor. His name was Alexeios Komnenos. This video is sponsored by History Hit, the best resource for anyone who wants to learn about the past. Enjoy hundreds of exclusive history documentaries about events that shaped our world, over 1,000 podcast episodes and 5,000 articles on all of your devices. Best of all, with 2 new programs and 15 podcast episodes every week, it's safe to say that History Hit is the true Netflix for history. A must-see is The Ottomans vs. Christians, Battle for the Mediterranean, a 3-part series about the colossal war that seized the Mediterranean in the 16th century, where the rising Ottoman Empire pitched against the alliance of European powers. This prolonged conflict was not just about territory and trade. It was a struggle for men's souls, a clash of civilizations. And you too can follow this historic journey with History Hit's exclusive offer available to fans of History Marsh. Click the link below to visit History Hit and use the code HISTORYMARSH when you sign up to get 50% off your next 3 months. Go where history is made with History Hit. Alexeios was the nephew of Isaac Komnenos, yet another Byzantine general turned emperor. His short reign ended with an illness that would force him to abdicate the throne to a member of the massively influential Ducas family, Constantine X. Fully realizing the massive power of this aristocratic family, Alexeios understood from a young age that it was better to have the Ducases as your friends than enemies. The young boy entered military service in his late teens and gradually rose through the ranks of the Byzantine army. It was within the service of Michael VII Ducas, an emperor largely responsible for the loss of most of the Anatolian peninsula, that Alexios' military talent would first shine. The young Komnenian commander played a crucial role in the subduing of a rebellion in Asia Minor, led by a former Norman mercenary named Russell Balliol, between 1074 and 1076. In 1077, the Ducas family was stripped of the imperial purple with the overthrow of Michael VII and his replacement with Nikephoros III, Botaniates. The new emperor was a highly competent and an experienced Anatolian general. However, for Nikephoros, his old age would prove to be a huge burden. Together with his brother Isaac II, Alexeios was relocated to the Balkans, where he was eventually promoted to the position of commander of the Western Field Armies. The year 1078 would prove to be crucial for the young Komnenian general. Within the span of 1 year, Alexeios scored 3 major victories. First against the usurper Nikephoros Bryennios, then against another claimant, Nikephoros Basilicus, before crushing a Pecheneg army near the walls of Adrianople. In the meantime, the current emperor Nikephoros III made a decision that would lead to his eventual deposition. The old ruler chose his nephew as his successor, instead of the claimant supported by the Ducas family, Constantine, the son of the former Emperor Michael and his wife, who was also the current spouse of Nikephoros, a princess named Maria of Alanya. Maria and the Ducas family conspired with Alexeios Komnenos, whom they believed would be more loyal to their interests. Upon learning of this betrayal in 1081, Nikephoros accused Alexeios of treason. However, unbeknownst to the emperor, Komnenos had escaped the capital. Alexios and his brother Isaac raised an army and entered Constantinople by convincing the German guards of the Theodosian walls to let them in. Cornered, Nikephoros III abdicated the throne in favor of Alexios. Constantine, the son of Maria and Michael, became the junior emperor, but being too young, he held no real political power. Following this swift deposition, Alexios lost control over his armies, which looted and plundered Constantinople for 3 days. This, however, was a minor inconvenience compared to the trouble brewing in the west. Southern Italy had just come under the control of a Norman nobleman named Robert Guiscard. Playing the local Lombard and Byzantine counts against each other, the former Norman mercenaries who once had served the Italian noblemen eventually consolidated control over the whole of Sicily and the southern Apennine Peninsula under the clan of de Hauteville. In 1080, Robert Guiscard began planning an invasion of the rich Byzantine province of Epirus. A year later, he landed with his forces near the Byzantine fortress of Dyrrhachium and besieged it. Wasting no time, Alexios gathered his armies to face the Normans. However, the Byzantines suffered a humiliating defeat, with the emperor narrowly escaping death. This defeat was not enough to crush Alexios' spirit. Through a series of bribes, the shrewd Romans spurred dissent in southern Italy and turned the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV against the Normans, forcing Robert to return to the peninsula. But the cunning old Norman left his son, Bohemond of Taranto, in charge of the Byzantine campaign, who in turn conquered nearly all of Epirus in the years that followed. Alexios tried to stop the Norman advance, but failed miserably once again. The Byzantine emperor was crushed on 2 occasions by Bohemond, first near the fortress of Iomina, and then at Arta. However, for the resilient Komnenos, giving up was never an option. In one decisive encounter in 1083, not far from Larissa, Alexios annihilated Bohemond's army, forcing the Normans to flee back to Italy. With the help of the Maritime Republic of Venice, the Byzantines recaptured most of the fortresses conquered by the Western Knights. Robert Guiscard returned to Greece a year later, in 1084, but died from a fever before he could accomplish much. In the following years, Alexios, like his predecessors, was forced to deal with multiple minor revolts and conspiracies, while trying to secure some of the coastal regions of Anatolia from the Turks, with partial success. But then, distressing news came from the north. In the late 1080s, groups from the Cuman and Pecheneg steppe tribal confederations crossed the river Danube and began plundering the provinces of the empire. The fierce nomadic warriors reached as far as Thrace by 1091. But Alexios had discovered that a rift had occurred between the Pechenegs and the Cumans, and he managed to bring the former to his side. In the spring of 1091, the emperor led a massive Byzantine Cuman force and crushed the Pechenegs at the Battle of Mount Livonian, forcing the nomads out of the empire's borders. Alexios could now turn his attention towards the domestic affairs of the empire. He attempted to tackle the massive inflation of the Byzantine currency, as the empire's coinage had been increasingly debasing since 1071, a process exacerbated by Alexios' predecessor, Nikephoros, who decreased the quantity of gold and silver in Byzantine coins in an attempt to increase the amount of currency in circulation so he could pay his armies, political supporters, and help the numerous poor Anatolian immigrants. Alexios reformed both the taxation and monetary systems of the empire. He began minting a new gold coin, the nomisma, and later ordered that taxes be at least partially collected in this currency instead of in the old, debased one. The emperor also introduced new titles for the nobility with which he would reward family members and loyal supporters. The famous title of Sebastocrator, which was roughly equivalent to Caesar, is a notable example. Alexios also reformed the Roman army, making it increasingly reliant on mercenaries and resembling more the European feudal armies at the time. The emperor could now begin planning the reconquest of the lost Byzantine lands in Anatolia. In 1095, he sent an appeal to Pope Urban II, asking for support from the Christian kingdoms of Europe against the encroaching Muslim enemy that was the Seljuk Empire. The Holy Pontiff, seeing an opportunity to unite the unruly European nobility under a Christian cause, called for a crusade, a reconquest of all holy cities of the Levant, promising atonement for sins to all who went to reclaim the sacred land. This promise was too tempting to ignore, not only for the warrior nobility, but for the lowest social castes as well. In 1096, a massive unorganized army of Western European peasants, led by a man named Peter the Hermit, entered the Byzantine territory, making sure to plunder and terrorize the local Orthodox population on their way. Alexios was surely surprised to see this unorganized mob in front of Constantinople, claiming to be the Holy Army sent by the Pope. The emperor lost no time and was quick to ship the peasant horde to the Anatolian shores, where they would quickly be annihilated by the Turks. Meanwhile, in Europe, a massive force of fierce knights, led by the most renowned warrior noblemen of the time, was gathering, ready to reconquer the Levant from the grip of the Saracens. One of the leaders of this crusader army was Bohemund of Taranto, the old Norman enemy of Alexios. Expecting only a few thousand mercenaries, Alexios was surely not expecting to see one of the largest armies ever assembled in medieval Europe in front of Constantinople's walls. Rightfully being distrustful of the Catholic Latins, the Byzantine emperor made them swear an oath to return every piece of land they conquer back to the Byzantine Empire, an oath which the leaders of the crusade would be all too eager to neglect only a couple of years later. In 1097, the Roman and Crusader armies would enter Anatolia. The first major Christian success would be the capture of the major city of Nicaea, which would open its doors to the Byzantine forces. The Crusaders then headed towards the Holy Land, defeating two Seljuk armies at Dorylaeum and Heraclea. In the meantime, Alexios focused on securing western Anatolia. In the same year of 1097, the major city Smyrna, which had been previously captured by a former Byzantine general of Turkish descent named Tzarkus, fell to the Byzantine general John Ducas. During the following 2 years, the Romans would reclaim the islands of Chios, Rhodes, and the major strongholds of Ephesus, Sardis, and Philadelphia. In the meantime, the Crusaders had reconquered nearly all holy cities of the Levant after a series of prolonged sieges and battles with the Seljuk and Fatimid empires. In clear opposition to their oaths, the leaders of the First Crusade formed independent principalities, turning their backs on Constantinople. On the other hand, the Crusader armies proved to be enough of a distraction for the Seljuks, which enabled the Byzantines to reclaim the entirety of western Anatolia by the year 1100. The remainder of Alexios' reign was a time of relative peace for the empire. He dealt with more plots against his rule and focused on quelling the growing heretical movements. Paulicians and Bogomils were persecuted, and heretical thinkers such as John Italos were condemned. These policies ended some of Alexios' popularity during the latter half of his rule. In 1107, Bohemond of Taranto, having returned to Europe from his holdings in the Middle East, invaded Byzantium once more. The Norman would begin another siege on the fortress of Dyrrhachium. However, Alexios was quick to react and managed to block the Norman camp until Bohemond was forced to negotiate. The Prince of Antioch agreed to a humiliating treaty of Deval, making his holdings in the Levant subject to the Byzantine Empire. In 1117, after repelling multiple Turkish attempts on his territory, Alexios embarked on one last campaign against the Seljuks, defeating Malik Shah, the Turkic ruler of Iconium, at the Battle of Philomelion. In August of 1118, Eastern Roman Emperor Alexios Komnenos died from an illness that had been troubling him for years. He is regarded as one of the most competent rulers to ever sit on the throne in Constantinople. Having inherited an empire that was on the verge of collapse, Alexios' resilience, sharp thinking, and political instinct enabled him to overcome all troubles and begin a process of restoration that would be continued by his successors. His son, John II Komnenos, would continue his father's work with equal, if not greater, success. But that is a topic for another video. If you stayed around this far, thank you for watching. And if you'd like to support our work like all these amazing people do, head over to our Patreon page where you can get ad-free early access to our videos for as little as $1. Or you can support us by clicking like and subscribing to our channel and leaving a comment as a sacrifice to the gods of the algorithm. As always, thank you for watching.